The year was 1999, and everything about it felt like the cusp of something big: new millennium, new beginnings, and for me and my 5 closest friends, a 2-week cruise aboard the luxury liner Eclipse Horizon. The ship was a massive beauty, a floating city that gleamed white against the endless blue of the Atlantic Ocean. Its sides were adorned with golden stripes, and the name was painted in bold navy letters near the bow. The deck stretched endlessly, with shimmering pools, bubbling hot tubs, and a grand staircase that spiraled down into a chandelier-lit ballroom. It was a mix of old-world glamour and modern-day luxury. I remember boarding the ship like it was yesterday, 6 of us laughing and jostling as we carried our bags, the air buzzing with excitement. There was me, Sam, the planner of the group, Ellie, my best friend since high school, always quick with a joke, and Sarah, quiet but with an edge that made you wonder what she was thinking. Then there were the guys: Jake, my goofy childhood neighbor; Alex, the suave one who could charm anyone with a smile; and Ethan, the quiet, dependable anchor of our group. Our cabins were on the 5th deck, each room outfitted with plush beds, tiny but elegant bathrooms, and porthole windows that offered an endless view of the sea. Ellie was already jumping on the bed as soon as we arrived, and Jake had started a debate about whether the mini-fridge drinks were complimentary. That first evening, everyone gathered on the top deck for the captain's welcome speech. Captain Harrington was an older man with a neatly trimmed beard and a voice that carried authority. He welcomed us aboard, thanked us for choosing the Eclipse Horizon, and laid down the ground rules. "We ask that all passengers respect the restricted areas," he said, gesturing toward the lower decks and the bridge. "These are marked clearly, and venturing into them is strictly prohibited. For your safety and ours." It seemed reasonable enough. After all, the ship was enormous, and there was already more than enough to explore. There were casinos, lounges with live music, sprawling dining halls, and even a small cinema. It felt like every corner had something new to discover. The first few days were a dream. We'd spend mornings lounging by the pool or sipping cocktails with umbrellas in them while Sarah read a mystery novel and Jake tried to convince the DJ to play his mixtape. Evenings were for extravagant dinners, with chandeliers casting soft light over tables piled high with every kind of food imaginable. There was laughter everywhere, children running down the hallways, couples dancing under the stars, and groups like ours soaking up the magic of it all. Everything felt perfect. But something about the captain's warning stuck in my mind. Why were some areas so off-limits? One night, I mentioned it to Alex as we stood by the railing, staring out at the moonlit waves. "They're probably just being cautious," he said with a shrug. "I mean, what's down there anyway? The engine room?" "Maybe," I replied, but I couldn't help feeling a twinge of unease. It was small, insignificant even, and I brushed it off. The others didn't seem worried, so why should I be? Looking back, I wish I'd paid more attention to that feeling. If I had, maybe I would have noticed the subtle signs, little things that seemed just a bit off. But at the time, we were 6 friends on the adventure of a lifetime, and nothing could go wrong. At least, that's what we thought. It started on the 4th night of the trip. Jake came back to our cabin with a look I'd never seen on him before, serious, almost unnerved. It was so out of character for him that I stopped what I was doing immediately. "You won't believe what I just saw," he said, closing the door and lowering his voice like we were in the middle of a spy movie. "What?" I asked, setting my book down. "The captain. Harrington. He was heading down to the lower deck, but he had this look on his face. I don't know, like he was guilty or something." "Guilty?" "Yeah. I mean, I didn't think much of it at first, but the way he looked around, like he didn't want anyone to see him, kinda hard to ignore." Jake wasn't usually one to take anything seriously, so for him to say something like this, it stuck with me. But I shrugged it off for the time being, figuring maybe the captain was just checking on something routine. At least, that's what I told myself. The next morning, Ellie couldn't find her favorite bracelet, the one her grandmother gave her before she passed. She tore apart our cabin looking for it, muttering under her breath about how she'd definitely packed it. By the afternoon, Sarah was missing her Walkman. "You're just as forgetful as Ellie," Jake teased, but she wasn't laughing. She swore up and down she'd had it just the night before. It wasn't just us. Around the ship, whispers started spreading like wildfire. People said their belongings were vanishing. Not the big things, no one was missing luggage or wallets, but small, personal items. Rings. Necklaces. Watches. Someone said they woke up and swore they saw someone in their room, Alex mentioned over lunch that day. He was trying to sound casual, but I noticed the way he glanced over his shoulder, like he expected to see someone listening in. "Who?" Sarah asked. "Some guy from the fourth deck. Said it was the middle of the night, and he saw a shadow standing at the end of his bed. But when he turned on the light, no one was there." "That's ridiculous," Ellie scoffed, though she looked pale. "People are just being paranoid. Maybe the ship has a thief on board, sure, but someone standing in your room just looking at you. Come on now. You have to draw the line somewhere." But paranoia was hard to avoid when rumors started piling up. People said they'd spotted someone dressed all in black, wearing a hood that completely obscured their face. It was always at odd hours of the night, and the figure would vanish as quickly as it appeared. "I saw them," one man told us as we stood near the pool that evening. "I was coming back from the bar, and they just appeared down the hallway. Black hoodie, hood up, and they were just standing there, watching me." And Jake pressed for more information. "And nothing. The second I looked again, they were gone. But they were real. I'm telling you." As creepy as it sounded, there wasn't much anyone could do. The crew seemed reluctant to talk about it. Whenever someone brought up missing items or strange sightings, the staff would smile politely, and promise that they would look into it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, every little creak of the ship making me jump. Around 2 a.m., I finally gave up and decided to go for a walk. The ship was eerily quiet at night. The hallways, usually bustling with people, were empty, the faint hum of the engines was the only sound. As I turned around a corner, I spotted movement, just a flicker at the far end of the corridor. I froze. It was someone in black. Hood up. Standing perfectly still. Looking straight at me. I wanted to call out, to ask who they were, but my throat felt like it had closed up. I blinked, and just like that, they were gone. I ran back to Jake's cabin, heart pounding. When I got there, Jake was awake, sitting on the edge of his bed. "You saw them, didn't you?" he asked quietly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "Me too," he said, staring at the floor. Whatever was happening on the eclipse horizon, it was no coincidence. And I had a sinking feeling it was only the beginning. The onboard theater was packed that night, every seat filled with passengers looking to pass the time. It was a small, cozy room with plush red chairs and an old-school charm that made you feel like you were stepping into a movie house from the 70s. The film they were playing wasn't exactly a blockbuster, a cheesy disaster flick that barely held anyone's attention, but it was good for a laugh. By the time the credits rolled, it was almost midnight. The hallways were quieter than usual, the occasional crew member darting past as we made our way back toward the central atrium. "Okay, that was so bad it was good," Sarah said, laughing as she tucked her hair behind her ear. Jake shrugged. "Better than the one we saw 2 nights ago. At least this one had explosions." Ellie smirked. "Yeah, because explosions make everything better." We weren't ready to call it a night just yet, so we decided to stop by one of the ship's smaller bars for a quick drink. The bar, tucked into the corner of the lounge, had a moody, intimate vibe with dim lighting and soft jazz playing in the background. It wasn't packed, just a few people nursing drinks and chatting quietly. Alex ordered a round for the table. To surviving this movie and still having taste, he joked, raising his glass. To not being on that sinking ship, Ellie added, clinking her glass against his. After a few drinks, the conversation turned back to the ship itself, the rumors, the strange sightings, and the captain's weird behavior. It wasn't the most cheerful topic, but none of our group could seem to let it go. You know, Jake said, swirling his drink, if the captain's hiding something, it's probably down on the lower deck. That's the one place they keep telling us we can't go. Ellie raised an eyebrow. You think there's a big secret just sitting down there? What, like treasure or something? Or the black hooded figure everyone keeps talking about, Alex added with a grin. The joke fell flat, and an uneasy silence settled over the table. Let's go, Sarah said suddenly, her voice cutting through the tension. Go where? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The lower deck, she said with a mischievous smile. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? It's probably just storage or something boring. But we might as well check it out. It didn't take much convincing. Fueled by a mix of curiosity and liquid courage, we left the bar and made our way toward the stairwell that led to the restricted area. But as we got closer, I started to make excuses why we should not go down there. In the end we turned back and went to our cabins. The last day of the cruise was bittersweet. The sun was out, the sea was calm, and the deck was alive with passengers soaking in the final hours of their vacation. But for the six of us, there was an unspoken tension hanging in the air. We knew this was our last chance. If we didn't go to the lower deck tonight, we'd leave with nothing but unanswered questions and eerie memories. Dinner that evening was subdued. We sat together at a table near the window, barely touching our food as we exchanged nervous glances. It was unspoken, but we all knew the plan. Finally, Sarah broke the silence. If we're doing this, we need to stick together. No splitting up, no stupid dares. Agreed? Agreed, Jake said, though his voice wavered slightly. After dinner, we waited until the main deck had emptied out and most of the passengers had returned to their cabins. The ship felt quieter than usual, the distant hum of the engines serving as a reminder of what lay below. We made our way down to the lower deck, our footsteps echoing in the narrow stairwell. The air grew hotter with every step, and by the time we reached the bottom, it felt like we were standing in the heart of a furnace. The lower deck was nothing like the rest of the ship. Gone were the polished floors and elegant decor, here, it was all exposed metal and industrial lighting. The walls vibrated faintly with the roar of the engines, and the air smelled of oil and salt. We spread out, scanning the area for any signs of our missing belongings. My heart raced as I opened a rusty cabinet, half expecting to find something sinister inside. But there was nothing, just old tools and spare parts. Anything? Alex called out. Nothing here, Ellie replied, her voice tense. We moved deeper into the deck, the oppressive heat making it harder to think clearly. I wiped sweat from my brow, trying to shake the growing sense of unease. Then I saw it. In the far corner of the room, partially hidden in the shadows, was a figure. I could not see their face, but I could feel their gaze locked onto me. Hey! I shouted, my voice cutting through the noise. Stop! Every instinct in my body told me to run in the opposite direction, but instead, I charged toward the figure. Behind me, I could hear my friends shouting for me to wait, their footsteps pounding against the metal floor. The figure turned and bolted, disappearing around a corner. I sprinted after them, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I pushed myself to keep up. When I turned the corner, I froze. There, lying on the ground, was the black hoodie, black trainers, and black trousers. The outfit was empty, as if whoever had been wearing it had vanished into thin air. What the hell? Jake muttered, stepping up beside me. I bent down, hesitating for a moment before picking up the hoodie. It felt normal, like any other piece of clothing, but there was something deeply unsettling about finding it here, discarded like a snake shedding its skin. Sarah shook her head. This doesn't make any sense. Who was that? And where did they go? No one had an answer. We stood there in stunned silence, the roar of the engines filling the void. Finally, Ellie broke the spell. Let's get out of here. Now. No one argued. We retraced our steps, climbing back up the stairwell and leaving the lower deck behind. The ship docked early the next morning, and the atmosphere was oddly subdued as passengers disembarked. We collected our bags and made our way to the exit, eager to put the strange events of the trip behind us. As I stepped off the gangway, I felt a pair of eyes on me. I glanced back, and there he was, the captain, standing at the edge of the deck, watching us leave. Our eyes locked, and for a moment, I saw something in his expression that made my blood run cold. It wasn't anger or suspicion, it was recognition. It was as if he was silently telling me, I saw you. I know what you did. I turned away quickly, my heart racing as I joined the others on the dock. None of us spoke about the lower deck after that. Some things are better left behind, buried in the shadows where they belong. But even now, I can't shake the feeling that whatever we stumbled upon down there wasn't meant to be found. And as for the captain, well, I have a feeling he knows more than he's letting on. Ready for spine-chilling tales that will haunt your thoughts? Subscribe to Forgotten Storyteller for eerie narrations, unsettling mysteries, and haunting stories you won't forget. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story, because some stories refuse to stay buried. Join us, if you dare.